Also authorizes the City of Philadelphia to enter into a second easement agreement with PAID to ensure that stormwater can continue to drain from the industrial parcels across the trail easement and into the Poquessing Creek. The location of the drainage easement was selected based upon current drainage patterns of the area. The stormwater drainage channel already exists and has functioned effectively for many years. As part of the development of the northern industrial site, stormwater drainage channel will be culverted underneath the trail to facilitate uninterrupted public access to the trail. PAID supports the bill as it ensures public access to the recreational amenities and green space while providing for continued stormwater management to support industrial development in our Byberry East Industrial Park. I would ask that the committee consider this bill favorably and that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading at the next regularly scheduled meeting of council. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony. We're going to hold the questions to the end. And sir, if you would state your name for the record and proceed.
Good morning, Chairwoman Bass and members of the committee. My name is Robert Armstrong, and I represent Philadelphia Parks and Recreation. I'm here to testify in support of Bill number 180459. This bill provides authorization to memorialize in a legal document two existing conditions. First, the bill authorizes an easement for the Poquessing Creek Trail, which was constructed and opened in 2014. Currently, a portion of that trail is on a parcel owned by PAID. The easement will create perpetual permission for the trail's location on that parcel. The trail will continue to function as part of the recreational amenities falling under the jurisdiction of Parks and Recreation. Secondly, the bill authorizes an easement for an existing surface drainage condition from two parcels of land adjacent to the park under the Poquessing Creek Trail and over parkland to the Poquessing Creek. We will work with our partners at the Philadelphia Water Department and PIDC to ensure that sufficient water quality standards are met and flood control measures are taken. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'm happy to respond to any questions you have.
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. Any comments from the committee? No? Okay. And we're going to now go into a public meeting to consider action to be taken on this bill. And the chair recognizes Councilmember Jones for a motion on bill number 170459.
Got it. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to move 459 out of committee with a favorable recommendation. I further move that the rules of council be suspended to allow first reading of this bill at our next session of council.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that bill number 180459 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of this motion will signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it and the motion carries. Bill number 180459 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation with the request that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading at the next session of council. Thank you very much for your testimony, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now go back into our public hearing. And if we can have the clerk read the title of bill number 170673.
An ordinance authorizing the Parks and Recreation Commissioner on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to enter into an agreement for the use of Cobbs Creek Golf Club, Karakung Golf Club, and the City Line Sports Center, under which the operator will restore, maintain, and operate those facilities as a single, first-class public golf course under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. And if we could have the clerk call the first panel to testify as witnesses.
Catherine Ott Lovell, Commissioner, Philadelphia Department of Parks and Recreation.
Speaks, may I be recognized?
And before we hear from our commissioner, Councilman Jones has some opening remarks.
So, my staff wrote a wonderful opening to this. They used the word bucolic, which I'm, still baffled about what it actually means, but thank you. But I'm gonna take some liberty to shorten this for you. Okay. I represent a great deal of the parkland, and to have recreational diversity in that parkland is a beautiful thing. We have cost-effective entertainment for our citizens that our commissioner has the responsibility of being the steward for, and I'm grateful every day for her appointment by Mayor Kenny. In West Philly, we have a golf course that has been designed by historians of designers of golf courses. And so it has seen better days. And in its 10 years ago, we had an opportunity to do a lease, and we dealt with some of the flooding issues. But a group of individuals have come forward to make a major investment. I'm not going to say how much, I'll let them say how much, into a city-related asset. So we are hopeful that by moving this out of committee today, that we will begin to restore it to its former glory. Adjacent to that beautiful golf course is a wonderful neighborhood called Overbrook Park and Overbrook. And I think this is one of the first times that I know of that a community benefits agreement has been put together with such detail and such involvement and respect one for the other, that I think it should be a precedent going forward. And I'm very pleased to recognize Karakung as a part of the 4th District, a part of our Parks and Recreation system. And I want to say for the record, they waited a long time. They showed a lot of patience. I think this might have been a 6-year wait for them. More? 10-year wait for them to come into this golf course. But what I hope to see someday is a major, whether it's a women's or a men's major in Philadelphia. We love Marion. There are sister brothers to the north, but there's no place like home, no place like Philadelphia. And we have an opportunity today to be the luckiest golf course in the world, to have people, both from my chairman to other stewards, that want to come in to our city and invest. So without further ado, I'm grateful that they chose this golf course. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Any other opening comments? No? Okay, Commissioner, if you'd like to begin your testimony, please state your name for the record.
Good morning, Chairwoman Bass, Vice Chair Jones, and committee members. My name is Catherine Ott Lovell. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Parks and Recreation. I'm pleased to be here before you today on behalf of the Department in support of City Council Bill number 170673. This bill authorizes the City of Philadelphia through the Department of Parks and Recreation to enter into a lease with the Cobbs Creek Restoration and Community Foundation for the restoration, maintenance, and operation of the Cobbs Creek Golf Club, Karakung Golf Club, and the City Line Sports Center. Cobbs Creek Golf Course is famous in our country's golf history. It was designed by Hugh Wilson in 1915 to be the public golf course equivalent of the renowned Marion Golf Club, which was also designed by Hugh Wilson and which has hosted the U.S. Open several times. Cobbs Creek Golf Course was once ranked among the top 10 public golf courses in the country, and for the past 100 years has upheld its founding vision that it be a multiracial facility and provide access to golf for all Philadelphia residents. Cobbs Creek has been host to numerous golf milestones, including several PGA Tour events, the last one in 1956. The course has deteriorated in more recent decades. The original Hugh Wilson design was obscured through a series of redesigns of the fairways and holes. Today, the course suffers from a lack of capital maintenance and frequent flooding from a badly degraded Cobbs Creek. The Department of Parks and Recreation would like to return Cobbs Creek Golf Course to its status as a first-class public golf course. The Cobbs Creek Restoration and Community Foundation created a restoration and operating plan that assures Cobbs Creek Golf Course will continue to be available to all Philadelphia residents. Hopefully, this plan will once again make the course desirable for prestigious tournaments. According to an eConsult economic development study, implementation of the Foundation's plan will create an economic benefit of up to $36 million for the city and state economies. The Foundation's plan includes the following contributions to the surrounding community and city: a community engagement plan for programming ideas and community access plan to provide access and employment opportunities at the course; free or subsidized golf instruction, sportsmanship, and other education programs for city youth; a first tee golf and sportsmanship program and support for high school golf programs and golf teams; a restaurant that will be open to the public; creation of up to 45 acres of new wetlands and improvements to Cobbs Creek to mitigate flooding, and will create thousands of square feet of newly landscaped green space. The foundation will appoint a full-time paid executive director to oversee the course restoration and to manage its ongoing maintenance and operation through a contract with a professional golf course management company. The lease agreement with the foundation will have an initial term of 30 years, with 2 renewal terms of 15 years each and a final renewal term of 10 years, for a total potential term of 70 years. Under that agreement, the foundation will raise an initial $20 million to restore the Cobbs Creek and Karakung golf courses and the City Line Sports Center and combine them into a single, first-class public golf course. The foundation will also construct a new clubhouse building with a restaurant that will be open to the public. The foundation will establish a capital reserve account and capital maintenance program to assure that Cobbs Creek remains a first-class public course well into the future. Throughout the lease agreement term, the city will not have any obligations to support the course or its operation financially. Today, I appear before you to offer the support of Philadelphia Parks and Recreation for this legislation and respectfully ask that City Council approve Bill number 170673. I'm very grateful to this bill's sponsor, Councilman Curtis Jones, and for his ongoing support and leadership of this endeavor. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony. Councilman Jones?
Yes, for members of the committee, talk about the structure of golf course leases in the city of Philadelphia, how it works, and where revenues come from,
Sure.
and expenses.
Sure. So we currently have a concessionaire who has it's Billy Casper Golf, and they currently hold the concession agreement for our golf courses. We struggle because the golf courses are in such need of capital investment, right? So it's very challenging to operate successfully a golf course, when there are so many capital needs that, to be honest, the department does not have the ability to meet, right? Because we have so many competing capital needs throughout our system. So the existing revenues from that concession agreement come to the department ultimately for us to allocate. But we're very hopeful that this agreement for Cobbs Creek will be much more beneficial to the site than the existing concession agreement has been.
So how many golf courses do we have?
I knew you were
as
going
a
to ask me
city?
that.
Yep.
Let me count. I'm going to ask Bob Allen to come on up because he knows this. John Burns and FDR Park are both under the Billy Casper agreement, and then we have Juniata Golf Course, which is under a separate agreement, and then we have Walnut Lane, which is a separate agreement with the First Tee. Did I get that right?
You did, yes. I'm Bob Allen from Parks and Recreation.
So how much do we receive in revenue from concessions?
From
Of
the
those
Billy
golf courses.
Casper concession, a very modest amount. It's $12,000 a year, and they were the highest bidder at the time the concession was structured about 10 years ago.
So is that for this individual golf course?
No,
all of them?
that's for all 3 of the golf courses that they manage for the city of Philadelphia.
And do you have responsibility for looking at their books to see what revenue it is they derive?
Yes, I
And how much
do.
do they-
I receive monthly financial statements from them.
So what is their
Over
annual?
the past several years, it has been a cash flow deficit for Billy Casper.
So they're losing money.
They claim so, and their financial statements would say so. They made projections at the beginning of the concession that were never achieved. They felt that with their marketing power that they would be able to achieve a certain level of revenue that never came. And the golf industry itself has, over the past 10 years, has had some ups and downs. And I think, especially in an urban area like Philadelphia, usage has not held up over the past several years.
So how does a relationship with this particular concessionaires and this investment change that dynamic?
Well, I think, as Catherine said, I think one of the major problems with our golf courses is that they're in such bad condition and needing of capital improvements that golfers are going elsewhere. And so a $20 million investment in Cobbs Creek in a historic course like this that will be restored again to be one of the top public golf courses in the country, I think will bring golfers back into our golfing community here in Philadelphia.
So a $20 million redesign investment will attract new golfers to this particular facility?
I think this course in particular, because it is so famous and, even in its present condition, it's interesting to many golfers. I'm not a golfer myself, so, I have to be careful, but, this is a course that I think will get national attention when it's restored.
If I could add, Councilman, I think you'll hear from the foundation on this. Of course, we think it'll attract more golfers. But I think there's also the potential for it to grow the game of golf for young people. The Foundation's commitment to provide youth programming both on-site to create a headquarters for the First Tee, which is a wonderful program that exposes inner-city youth to golf at no charge. And in addition to starting a golf team at a local high school and providing employment opportunities for local youth, I think the hope is that not only will we attract more existing golfers to golf here in Philadelphia, but that we will help to grow the game of golf for young people here in the city. And not just as a recreational opportunity, but really as an opportunity for college scholarships. There's great money for young people who know how to golf and who are good at it to go to college on a scholarship, as well as future career opportunities for young people in the world of golf.
So currently, before this investment, I happen to know that there are a couple of sponsored golf teams for young people. Are you familiar with them? First Tee program?
The First Tee, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you describe that for the members?
Sure. The First Tee is a nonprofit organization that operates, developmental golf programs for young people throughout the city. I think they start as young as 6 or 7 and go up to teenagers. They're located at a variety of different places, but they actually operate Walnut Lane Golf Course for us. They also have a presence at FDR Park, and it's basically a program that serves thousands of young people throughout our city, mostly young people of color, and introduces them to the game of golf, encourages them to work at it, but it's really it's very much about sports-based youth development, not just about the game of golf, but also about developing young people as individuals.
So this is nothing new. How long have you been doing this?
The First Tee, I don't know how long it's been around, for quite some time, but we could get that to you. It's been around for many years. They're a nonprofit organization that's a partner to us, and we're they've been a great partner to us.
So a young man by the name
I'm told, Councilman, about 9 or 10 years here in the Philadelphia area.
Got it. Young man, I found out, the only reason I know this is I was out at TWU's fundraiser golf tournament, and Malik Boyd, who is an entrepreneur, city of Philadelphia, boasted that he actually came from that program, and that's how he beat up on me on the golf course. So, so it wasn't a big deal beating up on me, but he mentioned that he was a participant in it. Okay, I'm done, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. I do want to acknowledge for the record that Councilman Kenyatta Johnson has joined us, and Councilman Toggenberger.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. Mr. Allen, if you could be just a little more specific. You said there were some proposals, some objectives that were not reached. If you could be a little more concise and say, why do you think they were not reached?
Sure. Every one of our concessionaires, I think, comes into a concession situation with, great ideas about what
Everyone, really?
what they're going to be able to achieve,
Okay.
and they don't always make the mark. That doesn't mean that they're not successful, but they don't always achieve their sales goals. And I think, in particular, the condition of our courses has been an obstacle over the years. And I think there are alternatives that, ring the city for golfers, even who live here in Philadelphia, to golf in a situation that maybe is in better condition.
I think with the number of municipal golf courses we have to rank near the top of the amount of golf courses that any city provides to its constituents. No?
I'm not sure. I know Chicago has more.
Chicago has quite a few, I'm not sure
We'd have
we
to
are
look
near the
that
top.
up, yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. Okay, so good point. Commissioner, you had said there's a new golf team what high school? I didn't catch that.
Overbrook High School.
Overbrook, excellent, okay. Let me also add to this, and this is now coming from personal knowledge, and maybe I should join you at the table, maybe not though. You're absolutely right that sports creates a lot of interest and also job opportunities. But there's also job opportunities in support of the sport. For example, the turf grass that you grow on those golf courses are studied at Penn State University. I am an agronomist. Soil scientist and field crop manager. Field crops come in from pasture grasses, which turned into golf course grasses. They themselves, the care and study of them, are really opportunities for youth to have employment. They need specialized mowers. Greens are cut on a daily basis. Fairways are cut every 3 days, every 2 days if it's really growing. My point is this, what you raised is even further expanded for job opportunities for youth. And I recently asked the head of the turf grass department at Penn State University, for every 3 graduates of Penn State University, agriculture, turf grass, there are five job opportunities waiting. So that means that student has a choice of where they want to go. So I think what we're doing in support of this is creating opportunities for employment in numerous disciplines as well. So I think that's very important and something this elected body should know.
I would add, Councilman, that the foundation has plans to do job training of the kind you described.
Okay.
And has committed to take in high school students.
Well, I'd like to be
train
a
them
little
over
more
a
involved
long
in
term.
that if you would have me. I think
sounds great.
it's
That would be
very
wonderful.
important. I think there are great opportunities, and I think it's a way to combat being the poorest city, largest city in America. We have to get out of that hole.
Yeah,
And-
those are great careers and they're in demand.
Okay, I'm ready to help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam
Thank
Chair.
you, thank you. I did have some questions that I wanted to ask about this arrangement. And can we just to be clear, the size of the acreage in the agreement, how many acres are we actually talking about in this arrangement?
Oh, Councilwoman, we should know that.
I'm going to guess around 300 acres, Councilwoman.
Come on up, Chris. Yeah, we're going to ask Chris Lang from the who's chairperson of the foundation to come up and answer that for us. You can introduce yourself.
Good day.
Good morning.
My name's Chris Lang, and I'm the president of the Cobbs Creek Restoration and Community Foundation. In terms of acreage, the total acreage is about 340 acres, and that is minus a section that is known as Haddington Woods, which has a different, will not be part of the lease, but that is approximately, I'm going to say, 75 acres, plus or minus.
75, yeah.
Okay, so am I deducting 75 acres from the 340? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
minus the 75.
Haddington Woods is a piece that has been restored by Parks and Recreation. It's a forested area that was part of the course.
Okay. It's more like 265 acres then, if we take out the 75 for Haddington Woods. Okay, and so it's 265 acres that, based on your testimony, Commissioner, looks like about a 70-year lease? That
Correct,
the
yes.
options go to up to 70 years?
Yes, the options go up to 70 years, correct. It's an initial
Okay.
30-year lease.
And so my concern is that, in this time when everybody's digging deeper, that is there what's the financial support gain, benefit to the city, and I certainly understand the benefit of an improved, area of parkland, but I think, at this moment in time, people want to make sure that the city is getting the most benefit from any financial transaction that it could possibly receive.
Sure. So I think one of the greatest benefits we see is the economic development benefit to the city and the surrounding community. So the foundation, actually, we asked them to do an economic benefit study, and they hired eConsult to do that study. And as I mentioned, it demonstrated that there's an up to $36 million benefit that could come back to the city and potentially, surrounding community, by the restoration of the golf course and, by increasing the visitation to the golf course, but also the potential of bringing some major tournaments to the golf course. When you think about when the U.S. Open was held at Marion a few years ago, and you saw the, the incredible visitation that happened along the U.S. Open, and the press that came with it, and the people that came to see it. There was a lot of that benefit that happened in the suburbs, right? Some of it happened here, certainly because we're so close to Marion. But when you think about bringing these major tournaments to the city of Philadelphia from a tourism standpoint, impact on local businesses, they'll be able to make hires to the local community as well to work at this course, whether it's, as Councilman Taubenberger said, at the course itself, or in the restaurant, or as in the pro shop. There will be lots of opportunities for local folks to have jobs, and I think the added benefit of bringing major tournaments to the city is really significant.
I think that's all great. I'm trying to get a sense of what's the direct financial benefit to the city. Is there a direct financial benefit?
Yeah, there's the
Well, no,
contribution.
that's the indirect. You're talking about when you talk
Sure.
about the
So the
hiring
direct
and the-
financial benefit is the up to $20 million investment in a facility. Looking at that, over the amount of years of the lease, that will be the.
Well, no, I guess what I'm saying is if I'm selling you a golf course, or leasing you a golf course for 70 years, and beyond the other benefits in terms of, there'll be jobs, it'll improve the neighborhood, it'll, I don't know, maybe reduce blight, reduce crime, hire some folks, teach some folks the game of golf, which is a great thing. There are all these other, benefits. But I guess what I'm asking is, I'm entering into a legal contract with you. And so what is the benefit for me? What's going to happen that the city of Philadelphia will directly have a benefit for? Is there a financial contribution? So if I'm leasing you a house, right, you have to pay, whatever the rent is, whatever the lease terms are. Is there anything of that sort in the agreement, in the arrangement?
Councilwoman, I would add that one important financial benefit is that the foundation will reinvest all of the cash flow from the golf course into maintaining the course. And a key component of the agreement is that we have asked them to engage an engineer to do a capital replacement plan. And we also have required that from the cash flow from the golf course, they will deposit to a capital replacement account the amounts needed, 20 years out to put a new roof on, to maintain the course so that we never get in a position again where we have a failing asset like this. So a key component for us is to maintain this, hopefully in perpetuity, but certainly during this 70-year term, we are assured that we will continue to have a first-class golf course for our citizens.
What's the expected projected benefit to the golf course manager? Do we have an idea?
It's a foundation, so it's a
Foundation.
not-for-profit foundation. So as Bob said, it was very important to us that this was a foundation, that we were entering into this agreement with a non-for-profit organization, as Bob said, that will, any funds that come in go back in to either as Bob said, the maintenance of the course, the hiring of individuals, the
Yeah,
maintenance of the
yeah.
course, the programs for young people. It's a not-for-profit organization, and we have similar relationships throughout our system. For example, the Mann Music Center, the Please Touch
Sure.
Museum, Smith Playground, that have leases that, are incredibly successful, provide a critical amenity to citizens, right? manage the capital investments that need to be made. The operating investments are good partners to us in the department, and so because we've had some great success, we felt with working with other nonprofits with leases such as this, the Discovery Center in East Fairmount Park is another example. We felt that there was a good model in place already for entering into such an agreement like this.
Okay.
And we have, I actually have in my materials behind me, I did a schedule of the terms that we have on various leases, and there is precedent for this kind of term with this type of transaction through Parks and Recreation.
Do our Parks and Recreation Center, or is this like the norm throughout the country? Is this what other
Well,
municipalities do?
I would say long-term leases are the norm in the golf industry, and with professional management companies that manage golf courses, but we have other types of projects at Parks and Recreation with lease terms that are similar to this. And we do.
I mean, I'm not opposed to a long-term lease. I think that, for a lot of reasons, it may make a lot of sense. I guess what my question is in exchange for that long-term lease,
Right.
what comes back to the city of Philadelphia? And I understand that we wanted a nonprofit or a foundation to, obviously be the responsible party for making this project happen. But, the city of Philadelphia, a third of our property is off the tax rolls, for nonprofit. Very good uses, lots of great things happening. But, we're a city that is, cash strapped. And so I'm just trying to figure out, again, what the benefit of all of this is to the city and the residents. Because one of the things that you mentioned, Bob, that really is of concern to me is that the revenue from our concessions is like, you said, did you say $12,000?
That was just from the golf concession,
That-
Councilwoman.
yeah.
Yeah, we do quite well with our other concessions, and we can get you that information, but many of our concessions do above and beyond what their projection was. So, and that,
Okay.
yeah, so, for instance, the catering at the Horticultural Center, there's many concessions. Parks on Tap was a concession that, we all held our fingers for, crossed our fingers the first year in hopes that it would just break even and is generating a significant amount for us on an annual basis.
Just to be clear, I was talking about the concession fee on the Billy Casper Golf concession only.
You were talking about what?
The concession fee on the Billy Casper Golf concession only.
Okay.
And when that was done 10 years ago, then they were the highest bidder with a fee of $12,000 a year because of the cash flow situation at our golf courses.
Okay. So we're not really charging like a fee or per acre to lease this property?
Correct. It's
So
a capital investment that will be made, correct.
So
but we
in
pay-
exchange for the capital investment,
Correct.
Right.
the city is not receiving any financial support
Well,
for 265 acres.
there is a large indirect financial support in that it's taken
Sure.
off our operating rolls.
Okay.
And,
What is the cost of that right now?
well,
What does it cost us for whatever maintenance we do
yeah,
for this location?
I could back into that by saying that the gross revenues at Cobbs Creek right now are about $1.5 million. And all of that is absorbed in maintaining the golf course and operating the golf course. Basically, our good golf courses operate on a break-even basis. Other courses struggle and have a negative cash flow right now.
So if we were to have to manage a golf course on our own, let's say that we put this out for bid to a concessionaire, and unlike last time, nobody bid, then the department would have to manage these golf courses on our own, or we're forced to close them. And we don't have the budget right now to be able to allocate, those kinds of resources. So we would have to look to this, our golf courses to be, to have a concession to operate them. But I think going back to what Bob said previously, we really were faced with a perfect storm. The game of golf was declining, right? And locally, people were going elsewhere to play golf, and our courses are in bad shape, right? And so you have a perfect storm of golf not going in the direction, right, where it can be profitable, right, as a whole, and courses that are in really bad shape. And so you have that perfect storm, and it's hard to figure out how to continue to make that profitable, right? And so we felt, really wonderful when we had this nonprofit partner that came in and said, look, we believe in this course. We believe in what it can mean for the city of Philadelphia. We think that it needs to be restored, that there's the potential to restore this to what it could be, and we want to raise the funds and make the investment to do that. And in exchange for that, you know, we're looking for an agreement where we can continue to do this for quite some time, you know, and so that's our agreement. Again, as Bob said, we looked at other leases that we have in the system with other partners. Like I use the example of the Please Touch Museum, the Discovery Center. We have other precedents where, because partners were making this significant capital investment and because the mission was something that aligned with our mission as a department and as the city, that we felt that this was a very good deal for the city. So there is precedent for that.
This was a very good deal? Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
Let me ask one other question, because one of the things you mentioned is that there was going to be that you were glad that a partner stepped forward and offered to work with Parks and Recreation to make all of this happen. And so, I'm sorry, sir, the name of the entity again is the...
It's the Cobbs Creek Restoration and Community Foundation.
Are you from the community?
I am not.
You're not? Okay.
I live a mile away. I'm in the
Okay.
suburbs.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
I played the golf course in high school. You know, I've been familiar with it for
So you know the area?
55 years. Yeah,
Okay.
Very familiar with the area.
So is this, but I guess what I'm trying to figure out, is this a community-based board or organization that is, because the name of it is the Cobbs Creek Restoration and Community something, something, something. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, is it community-based? Are there people from that community on this board?
Not at present.
Not
In
at
other words,
present.
so the lease agreement, while I've been involved with this for over 10 years, trying to, push this along, the challenge is always first to get a lease agreement. And then once you get a lease agreement, we're going to have another 2 years of investment and hard work to gain all the other different approvals. So right now, the foundation is just set up and
Okay.
it's waiting to get developed, so to speak, just like the golf course and everything else.
So you said you've been working on this for 10 years?
Yes.
Okay, so you knew the course and you just thought it was that, I guess, did you see the potential?
So it's historic. And, in the golf world, which, I've spent a lot of time in, because of its historic nature, it will be instantly, once the investment is made, I believe it will be instantly successful and known around the country. And that's how significant it is.
Okay, all right. What makes it historic?
Excuse me?
What makes it historic, the design?
So golf, we were going to give our little presentation, and part of that was going to be given by John Burns, but if, you would like me to get into it, I'd be more than happy to get
Why
into
not?
it. Okay.
We'll have John come up in a minute.
Okay, so when golf got started in this country at the turn of the century, and because Philadelphia was one of the major metropolitan areas, like New York, like Chicago, like Boston, it had a strong infancy, and we actually, had, because of the size of the city, we had a lot of golf courses that were being built as golf was beginning. And because of that, we had a lot of architects, famous architects now, architects that, for example, this week, the U.S. Open is being played at Shinnecock. And the course was designed by Flynn, who had his hand in this golf course. So, back at the turn of the century, some of the best parcels of land could be used for golf because, they weren't developed. And Cobbs Creek fits that. So when it got built, and because it was built by Hugh Wilson, who is another famous architect, the routing, the way the holes flow, the use of the creek, and that historic nature to somebody who is in golf, instantaneously, people from outside of this area will want to come play this golf course, as well as people that live in Philadelphia. If you read the lease, one of the purposes of this lease is to do this for the city of Philadelphia. And so, the average guy who doesn't have access to Shinnecock,
Right.
who doesn't have access to Pine Valley, who doesn't have access to Marion, will be able to play a world-renowned championship golf course once this investment's made. So, there's no question in my mind that, if 3 years from now, we have spent this $20 million plus, that we will have a golf course that will be known the world over.
Okay, okay. Commissioner, can you tell me additional buildings built on the site? Will there be additional buildings with that $20 million investment?
Chris, answer that if that's okay, Council.
Yeah, so in order for us to gain our approvals, we're going to have to first get preliminary approvals from the Art Museum, from the Water Department, and from Parks and Recreation. Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, Art Commission.
Art Commission. Yeah. And Art Museum.
Non-Art Museum.
Oh, not Art Museum, okay. I know we need a lot of approvals. So right now, we had a fire and, 2 or 3 years ago, and the clubhouse was in a location. Right now, our plan calls for putting the clubhouse right alongside of the 18th green, because that's the way a lot of great golf courses are, so that the restaurant will overlook the 18th green. As part of the clubhouse that we will build, we will also have a dining room, a dining area, and we'll have a pro shop, and we'll have, so in the lease agreement, we have the ability to build up to 60,000 square feet, no more than 3 levels. Part of this is the Golf Association of Philadelphia, which is one of the oldest golf associations in the United States. They have expressed interest as early as 8 to 9 years ago that they would like to move their, operation, which employs, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 people. They have indicated they would like to have a location, like to have their office, corporate location at Cobbs Creek. So the plan may include that as we get through it. That would be another negotiation that would take place with the Golf Association of Philadelphia. And they would also house a first tee, so that, on both sides of what is now the practice range, you would have a clubhouse overlooking the 18th green, and on the right-hand side, you might have the Golf Association of Philadelphia's offices with a first tee, because access to the range, is important. As far as the other building, our initial thinking is that we will rehab one of the historic buildings that's now being used for maintenance. It's totally dilapidated. We would rehab that and expand that a little bit to house our green superintendent staff. And then there's an existing cart shed area that we would use probably as is and rehab it, because it's, everything's basically depreciated. So they're the big ones, the big items that we would, that we would include in our plans when we come in front of you for initial sketch approval.
Okay. I have a number of questions, and I just want to make sure. You mentioned Shinnecock, which I've actually been to, not to the golf course, but I've been to the reservation, the Native American reservation, which, it's sort of like, you have this, huge, sprawling, beautiful golf course on Long Island in the Hamptons, and then you have, a Native American reservation, sort of squoze in there. And so it feels like there's an equity issue, if you understand what I'm saying. And so I think that myself, the members of council, and certainly Councilman Jones, all want to make sure that we're doing something great. We're doing something great for the city, something great for the community, and we're not going to have that sort of inequity here in our city. But Councilman, I know you had something that you wanted to say. I'm sorry.
So, and I appreciate, Madam Chair, your diligence to make sure we get the best deal that we can possibly get. But I want to give context. Right now, the improvements to that golf course are paid for out of our maintenance budget. So you know what we get, and you know how many facilities we have, and it's not enough to go around. And it's unfortunate that the commissioner has to live under those kind of financial conditions and restraints. So, for example, I have also Walnut Lane Golf Course, and I believe it's going to cost us $50,000 to restore the netting up there. If that was the last estimate, that comes out of our capital improvements budget, so that golf balls don't go through my neighbors and constituents' windows.
Sure.
And in particular, for this golf course, Cobbs Creek, from the time I was elected, the community, which will testify, has had issues with the maintenance of this golf course. And so when I first did the tour of the golf course in the neighborhood, people had buckets of balls that they picked from their air conditioners, windows of their cars. And so what I'm appreciative of in this is a redesign. They're going to change the direction of certain holes to be more historic, but also less intrusive to some of the neighbors. We did a tour of the area most recently, and unfortunately for my neighbors, the idea of living next to a golf course, a serene golf course. So in another part of my district, there's the Bala Golf Course. And the people in Winfield that live around that get to walk out the back door and see this vista where, it's pristine. But in a city facility, because of budget cuts, that is not shared in Overbrook Park. So with this $20 million investment, capital investment, we can change some of that. I would love to have community meetings in this new restaurant where we're at the 18th hole, looking out, somebody's wedding at the 18th hole, to be a part of that public access. In addition to relieving me of having to do that, and in particular, there was one, you just put sidewalks, or we're putting sidewalks along a part of the district next to the golf course where my constituents currently, in inclement weather, have to walk on the other side of the street because there's no sidewalk. So $20 million is nice. It's going to look beautiful. Hopefully Tiger Woods will bless us with a golf ball, not in someone's window, going the other way. But more importantly, it does the routine maintenance for the adjacent neighborhood that doesn't have to, there had to be a deer culling, and God forbid the animal rights people know about that, because we haven't had fencing along the perimeter because we couldn't afford it. So hopefully, God willing, as we do this partnership, that takes it away from our ability to have to maintain and puts it in the lease, their responsibility to do, with a certain portion for accounts to make sure that if a roof goes, that we have that, and that doesn't come out of some kids' swings that we should be putting somewhere else. So I want to give the dynamic a different measurement. And the measurement is not in my pocket, in their pocket. And that's the way I look at it. The other thing that I think that comes from this, if we are lucky to land a tour, the restaurants in the area, the hotels in the area, this becomes not a liability to the city, but an asset to attract. And when you do that, it changes the economic dynamic. You said eConsult did a study of what the potential is. I think what my chairwoman has concerns about, and I can't speak for her, but I can understand why. If we only had $12,000 worth of revenue for all of our golf courses, tell us how this investment changes that 12,000 to a different number. So, guesstimates, estimates.
So
You gotta move that mic near you, though.
I think Councilman.
You have to move that mic near you.
Microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So Councilman Jones and Councilwoman Bass, I think you have it right on. In other words, you understand, what this is. Namely, there is no rent, okay? This $20 million investment is going to create something. And by lease, we're going to have a strategic plan that we have to get approved that's going to have a community engagement plan and a community access plan. And we're going to have, in that access plan, we have employment opportunities.
No, say what they are. We're real simple people. Say what they are.
Well, so, one of the greatest things that one can do is learn to caddy and learn to play golf. But learning to caddy, you're around, people that are in business or people that, so there's caddying opportunities for the youth. There's opportunities to work on the green staff, which is in the lease agreement. We've agreed.
We put it in the lease
It's
agreement.
in the lease agreement. So in the lease agreement, there's an Article 19 that talks about compliance with economic opportunity plan. So we're obligated. In other words, you're not going to sign this lease and all of a sudden, we have covenants in this lease in terms of first tee, in terms of educating kids, giving kids, access to golf. It's in the agreement. In other words, otherwise we're in violation of our lease.
I'd really like to see that. Not that I don't take you at your word.
No,
But
by all
I would
means.
just like to see what the terms of those agreements are, just because, if we're saying that, we're going to run a program that gives access to residents at a discount. And I believe that was one of the benefits, that there was going to be access to residents, but no one could tell my office what that discounted access would be, what the fee structure would be. Because if I'm, barely making it, or even if I'm of middle-class background, maybe I still can't afford what it is that you're offering. If you're offering me a discount from, I don't know, I'm just going to throw some numbers out there, but if normally it's, $250 to play at your course, and you're offering it to me for, $100, that's still probably out of my range. And so I just wanted to get some idea in terms of what the numbers are. Have we looked at what would be affordable to that community? Does that play into these calculations? Are we looking at those sorts of things as well?
Yes, absolutely. So, Bethpage Black in Long Island, their residents, if you're a resident of the state of New York, you play a world-class golf course for half the price that, somebody like myself traveling from Pennsylvania would pay. So those fees up there are somewhere in the neighborhood of, I'm going to say, $65 to the resident and $130 or $150. Don't quote me on it, but it's
Sure.
something like that. So
Okay.
we will have that same dynamic here where the resident of Philadelphia will pay less. And Councilwoman Bash, you're absolutely correct. One of the reasons golf has not grown is because it's very expensive. So what are we? We're a foundation. So, maybe those prime times, we can't, let somebody who doesn't have the means go out and play golf in prime time because there's somebody that, is willing to pay that, the regular fee. But I think because we're a foundation, our goal will be if the golf course is not being used, we'll want residents, and those residents who can't afford it, especially kids, to use the golf course. So that will come after we get through this stage because we have to come up with, a community engagement plan and access plan, which has the resident fee in it. And Catherine has approval, to figure that out. So
And I would add, not only does Catherine have approval over the initial resident fee, but the lease restricts the amount that fee can be changed over the years to the CPI or 2%. So there are limitations on
Okay.
that
Okay,
fee
that's good.
changing over the life of the lease.
That would be good. Has there been community meetings, Councilman, on this? You want to speak to that?
Wait, no, Catherine?
Community meetings and tours and walkthroughs, and I have spent many a day over the last 2 months meeting with community members, in and around the golf course. It's a massive course, and we have people that live, as the councilman said, thousands of people who live, within spitting distance of this
Sure.
course. And I've been in this position 2 years. It's a massive system, and it's hard to go out there and meet with these people where they are at 77th and Windale, and at Rose Playground, and to hear what they've had to put up with for the past not 10 years, 20, 30 years, with a deterioration of not just the course itself, but the area around the course, short dumping that happens. I mean, people just pull up in trucks and they dump into our park, the golf course,
I'm familiar.
stuff, and so, there are, yes, the golf balls are an issue, but, there's a lot of illicit activity that happens in the nooks and crannies around this course. There's broken sidewalks, there's so many concerns, and, it's painful for me as a commissioner to have to go out and hear these things and to know that we don't, we don't have the capacity to deal with this. We have been responsive. We have been as responsive as possible, and our deputies can attest to that. You know, we did a massive cleanup just recently at one edge of the golf course that was an embarrassing, you know, disgrace. And we're continuing to, you know, to do that. Our operations crews know that the perimeter of the golf course has to be a priority. So, you know, we're working really hard to address them, but we've been certainly very enlightened by the local community about the issues there. Enlightened.
I like your word, enlightened. I know some of the particulars, so enlightened is a good word.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Just a couple more questions, and I know we need to move along. Regarding the community, is there a community benefits agreement already in place?
There's aspects of the lease that are you know, list of community interests and needs that are part of the lease, and then there, as Chris mentions, a separate community access plan
And a community
and
engagement
a
plan.
community engagement plan that's a requirement of the lease that is to be determined as the project unfolds.
Okay, and is the city of Philadelphia putting any money into this project?
Not as of right now. I'm not sure, you know, as the fundraising goes on, potentially what might happen. As of right now, we have not committed anything.
But there's a possibility that we could?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have it in our budget, but I can't speak to, you know,
Well,
what.
I know how that goes around here. I know how that goes around here.
Parks and Rec is
It
not,
doesn't have
does
to come
not,
from-
does not have the capacity to
Doesn't
contribute.
have to come from
I
your-
can't speak to other entities within the
Okay,
city.
all right, okay.
I'm sorry, Bob's reminding me that, as Chris mentioned, there was a fire at the original clubhouse 2
Okay.
years ago. It completely burned down, and we do have an insurance payout. I believe it's 1.5.
So it's about 1.5 million. It went
That will go towards
into the
this.
general fund, but it's been earmarked potentially to help rebuild the clubhouse.
Yes.
But if the
That will go towards
organization is
this.
going to rebuild it, shouldn't that money come back to the city of Philadelphia, though?
That is, to my understanding, that is dedicated to the course, and it will go towards this, towards the rebuild. That is correct.
So
That is
they're
the
putting,
understanding.
so the organization, the foundation will put in about 20 million, and then we will put in 1.5 million.
From the insurance proceeds from the.
insurance proceeds,
Yes,
right.
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, I just have one other question, and then we can move on, and that is about the history of the golf course, because when I mentioned the history earlier, one of the things that's been brought to my attention is that it, as I understand it, it hosted the National Negro Open in 1936, 1947, and was considered the premier golf tournament, for African Americans who at the time could not play at any PGA tournaments. And so is there any plans for recognizing that historic significance of the site?
So we'd like to invite John Burns, who can introduce himself and say a few things about that. Introduce yourself.
Good morning, Council. My name is John Burns. I am the secretary of our nonprofit foundation. So that is correct, Councilwoman Bass. Cobbs Creek is historic, obviously, for a number of reasons. One, native Philadelphians, from an architectural standpoint, built the golf course, which is clearly significant. But more importantly, it literally was a site of inclusion. When the game, unfortunately, was exclusive, Cobbs Creek in the city of Philadelphia was inclusive. And so the equivalent of the National Negro Open in baseball is the United Golfers Association in golf. And with that, a number of pioneering golfers, including Howard Wheeler, former heavyweight champion Joe Louis, and Philadelphia native Charlie Sifford actually played at Cobbs Creek, had their major tournaments there. I should remark also that Mr. Sifford went on to become the first African American to play on tour, to win on tour. It was essentially the equivalent of Jackie Robinson in golf, and certainly was a barrier breaker. So what we would like to do in our multi-faceted clubhouse, I call it a learning center, is we want to make sure that we recognize the proud history, like so many components of our city, the proud history of Cobbs Creek, including African Americans in the game, the historic nature from the architectural standpoint, all would be recognized in the clubhouse. So you could come there, donation-based, it'd be free, and see what impact our city had on this game, literally worldwide. And when you think of our history, clearly you can make a case that golf in America started here in Philadelphia.
Okay. Okay, well,
Councilwoman, could I
Yes.
just say one other thing?
sure.
In the audience today, we have Mike Serba. And Mike painstakingly wrote with Joe Bausch to his right the history of Cobbs Creek. And, it is really all-inclusive. And I just want, on this topic, recently Mike traveled to, I believe it was West Palm Beach, Florida. And can you just suggest what happened there?
When you come up. Yeah.
Councilman didn't get the invitation to go to West Palm Beach, Florida.
No, not at all.
Thank you for hearing me, council members.
Absolutely. State your name for the record.
Mike Serba.
Uh-huh.
Myself and Joe Bausch, as Mr. Lang attested to, put together about 10 years ago the history book of Cobbs Creek. And what we learned, along with the UGA tournaments and the rich, inclusive history of the golf course from its very inception, at a time when golf was a very exclusive game. You would have whites and blacks playing together on the golf course throughout its history. In the spring of 2016, Mr. Bausch and myself nominated Cobbs Creek Golf Course to be recognized by the African American Golf Hall of Fame that is headquartered in West Palm Beach, Florida. We went down of our own accord to accept the nomination for Cobbs Creek Golf Course, which is now a proud member of the African American Golf Hall of Fame. In attendance were any number of luminaries in the golf world, including Mr. Jim Thorpe, an African American golfer of great repute on the PGA Tour. We think a large portion of what we are trying to do is celebrate that history of inclusiveness and looking at it from a Philadelphia standpoint. We really think it's very important that this have a large community benefit, not only to golf and golfers, but to the whole region at large. When we look at West Philadelphia and what the potential is, we think it's enormous, and I think we're all motivated by really just the stories we've learned as we've researched this, and again, knowing what the potential had been, what a asset this was to the city of Philadelphia, and what it can be again in the future, especially as we look at the sporting renaissance of Philadelphia in recent years. We think this just fits right into that whole story. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Really appreciate that, because history is important, and history matters. History really matters.
Councilwoman, may I just
Sure.
make a comment on
Certainly.
the community piece?
Sure.
As secretary, I've spent a good amount of my time engaged with the community. I'm from 69th and Market. I cut grass at Cobbs Creek as a kid. The game had served me well. I went on to be a caddy. I earned a caddy scholarship, what we call a J. Wood Platt Scholarship, which is what we want to bring back to Cobbs Creek. It used to be there many years ago. We want to bring that back. I went on, earned a number of degrees, 3 from our Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I was a teacher. The game works. Unfortunately, it struggles with attracting minority participation, attracting women. So at the hallmark of what we're trying to do with our youth programming through the First Tee is reintroduce that dynamic back to the game. I'm on the World Golf Foundation Accessibility to Golf Board, and we have a commitment to have a First Tee chapter dedicated to Cobbs Creek, where we can serve hundreds of kids. And so in our testimony, as you saw, there's a number of wonderful things that Commissioner Lavelle and others have really orchestrated. Snyder Hockey is a good example. And what we've done as a foundation is gone around and looked at best in class of what's happening in our city. Discovery Center, Work to Ride, Snyder Hockey. And one of the key components is that your opportunity has to be near the community. It has to be near the kids. It has to be near the schools. And so Overbrook Park is literally within walking distance of that opportunity. Yeah, obviously, and I'll address that in a moment. And so literally every month I attend the meetings with our police force, who do a wonderful job in Councilman Jones's district. In addition, every other month I attend the town halls. We received a list of concerns from the community, one of which, of course, was the golf ball. Another was the unfortunate overflowing of the creek itself. Another was vandalism and criminal activity that occurs on the property, not the intent of our pioneers 100+ years ago. So we've worked with the community in detail, and the good news is our motivations are the same. We're going to put a lot of money into the property. We want it secure as well.
Sure.
So gone will be that criminal activity that occurred. We don't want golf balls leaving the property and damaging our community neighbors. So we've committed to some rerouting the holes and protective fencing along those lines. And lastly, the creek itself, I should mention, is sort of the rose and a thorn. It's a rose in that it contributes to the architectural quality of the golf course. It's a thorn that it overflows. The community doesn't like it. We don't like it. And so we've worked with the Army Corps of Engineers. My father's a 42-year vet of the Army Corps. We've worked with the DEP. And so we're not going to want to put all this money into it and have it all literally washed away.
Right.
So Mr. Lang engaged land studies, and we're going to put in a comprehensive wetlands program that's going to mitigate the flooding, decrease the velocity of the creek itself, decrease the stench that actually occurs from this property. And again, we're going to be happy as operators, but more importantly, the neighborhood is going to be happy. So the community is very important to us. It was literally the first thing we did. In addition, there's a comprehensive OEO program. We've worked with Mr. Epps' office. We've been appointed a liaison, Mr. Vincent Gum, who is here today. We have our plan, and we believe in investing in our neighborhood. And in addition, from there, we want to expand out our board. The initial board is myself, Chris Lang Jr., Bill Sasso, but we're all just kind of doing this on our own dime right now. What we want to do is, once we get established, establish a board that's reflective of the community, that has just different temperaments, talents, and convictions, and ultimately be reflective of our purpose and our outcome, which is serving this community.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for your testimony, and I really appreciate it. I do have some concerns, obviously, because, it's 265 acres. The foundation is making a $20 million investment, and on top of us giving away, I say giving away, but, kind of like a 70-year lease as far as I'm concerned, without us receiving any, financial support back, is a giveaway. I mean, that's a steal. That's a great deal, I think. And we're investing $1.5 million back into the property, for the for the foundation. So, I have quite a few concerns about it, but I think overall the mission is a great mission. We want to make sure that our young people can enjoy the game of golf, that they know it, that they can play it, and also that there are other opportunities to be possible employment, to be possibly employed at the site. So I think that is, a great thing. Again, my concern really is so much of the time here in the city of Philadelphia, we just give stuff away, and we can't afford to do that. We just can't afford to just hand things over and, hope that there'll be some sort of a financial benefit. Because let me just ask, I haven't asked this question, but is there any sort of financial comeback incentive that will come back to the city of Philadelphia through some sort of like a profit sharing, I don't know,
So-
partnership arrangement? Is there anything that comes back to the city down the road? Am I missing that?
So it is a nonprofit corporation.
Certainly.
So as Bob said earlier, anything raised at the site goes back into the site. It doesn't go into Chris's pocket. It doesn't go into John's pocket. It goes back into this site, just like our other nonprofit partners. Just doing the quick math, and I could be wrong because this isn't my strong suit, but when if you were to amortize a $20 million investment, like you said, you get a mortgage, right?
Yep.
If you were to amortize a $20 million investment over 70 years, it's around $280,000 a year, right? If you amortize it over 30 years, which is really all they got. If they do well after 30 years, they get a renewal, but they got to prove that they're doing well in 30 years. If you amortize it over 30 years, it's over almost $700,000 a year. So that to me is, a $300,000 a year investment, right, amortized over 70 years. That's significant for this foundation to make. They're raising $20 million up front. That's a significant risk this foundation is making. They're going out to funders, they're going out to partners, and they're saying, we have a dream, we have an idea, right? We have a commitment, and we want you to get on board with this commitment. It's a similar situation that the Discovery Center recently did when we gave them a lease, a long-term lease, and they raised $20 million. It's a similar, agreement that we did with the Please Touch Museum. But this is a risk that these nonprofit organizations take to raise that money and invest it in a city asset. We, as a city, have not made that investment, and so a nonprofit partner comes in and makes that investment. And if we were giving them a mortgage on this property, I think $300,000 a year. Again, I'm not a mortgage consultant, I'm not a real estate person, but $300,000 a year, even though it is 265 acres of land, it's a significant investment to make, and it's a far better deal than the city is getting right now or has gotten in the past 10 years.
And if I may add, Councilman Bass, the programming that's occurring here as someone who's been in education is quite substantial. If you add those hours out by the day, we're literally going to be serving hundreds of kids a year. As you know, our graduation rate in the city of Philadelphia is not terrific. It's around 67, depends on who you ask. 67 is a great golf score. It's not a great graduation rate. However, doing our due diligence through these wonderful programs that Catherine mentioned, Discovery Center, Snyder Hockey, graduation rates go to 90% and higher. So the community is really for this, and that's a big attraction for us. And when you count those dollars of our assets going into the community, the number actually becomes exponential. So I want to point out for one. Two, the health benefits.
Right.
Unfortunately, we have a major obesity issue with children in our country. It's 1 in 7 children are obese. Unfortunately, in urban settings, that number goes to 1 in 5. So we want to address that. We're partnering with some of our medicine institutions in the community, and we want to bring them on board as partners as well. And lastly, I want to point out, and Mr. Lang's quite humble, but he's recognized in our game as a major leader, having been in the game for over 5 decades. He is devoted to our game, has led a number of volunteer opportunities with youth in promoting our game. His network is quite expansive. He's a devoted husband and father and now grandfather. And so yes, part of the mission down the road would be to attract a tournament back to Philadelphia. And we're one of, out of the top 10 markets in the country, we're the only one to not have a tournament stop, which means an economic impact from 50 to $100 million. So unlike these wonderful programs that we have, Discovery Center and Snyder Hockey and so forth, one thing they can't do, and it's no fault of their own, is potentially bring in a major economic impact driver. and we've already begun those conversations with the organizations in our game, the PGA of America, the USGA, and the LPGA.
Okay. Well, listen, like I said, I think that the goals, the objectives, are certainly warranted. But we are a city that is financially cash-strapped. There is just no getting around that, especially when we have, our mayor wants to raise the real estate tax rate. Assessments have gone up, and folks in our communities are really wanting to know how we're spending our dollars. How are we spending each and every dollar, and are we acting as the best responsible parties for public assets? And so this is, a question that I'm sure, as folks, assuming that some folks are watching, our hearing is a public hearing, assuming that some folks are watching, the idea that we're sort of giving away 265 acres, 70 years, we're also adding $1.5 million into the pot. Listen, it's a sweet deal if you can get it, but it doesn't help our school district, it doesn't help our residents, in terms of making sure that we're doing what they are always asking us to do. And so I just have some concerns there, but I'm just going to leave it at that. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Toggenberger.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. And I very much say ditto to everything the chair lady has just said. You said all the right things. I think the everything is really good. I like it a lot, but the concerns that Chair Lady Bass has, I equally have them, and because we just don't know what the future is. I mean, you come with some great goals, it's fantastic, but I will have to say I have some concerns. Mr. Burns, you had said you're seeking to go after a golf tournament. What sort of golf tournament would you be going after? Maybe you can mention a few of them, or give us an idea what they look like.
Sure. So a big key in attracting a tournament, obviously, is a market size, which Philadelphia naturally has a market size, and then a sponsorship. You need a corporate sponsor to partner with to bring that tournament to Philadelphia.
Okay.
So it's not just one specific tournament. It's that we're working with these governing bodies to attract one of those tournaments.
Well, name one or two that you might just have a shot at getting.
Tiger Woods' tournament down in Washington.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. That's a good answer.
5 years ago, 6 years ago, we had Tiger Woods, executive director at Cobbs Creek.
Okay.
So it's like, you got to build it before they come.
Okay, I have a much clearer understanding.
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah,
Okay.
and you're going to see this September 5th through 10th. They're playing Aronimink, a BMW Classic. It's a part of the FedEx Cup. It's a major tournament. It'll be at Aronimink. That's a logical tournament to try to host because it moves around. It doesn't have just one, steady spot. And on the Tiger Woods Foundation, they recently have lost their primary sponsor. So it's driven by a sponsor. So we have corporations here in Philadelphia that, down the line.
We do. I think it's a strategy that could work.
Absolutely.
Could work. And there's some there are some corporations that I think could be a good fit, and I get it. Mr. Lang, you had said that the Golf Association of Philadelphia, that you would have an opportunity to possibly move them in.
Yeah.
You seem rather confident. Are you pretty confident of that?
Well, it's just like this lease we're doing, until you sign a lease, you really don't have anything. But yes, confident because it fulfills the mission of the Golf Association of Philadelphia. Okay. And that is, golf for so long was for the privileged. They know in order to grow the game, they've got to attract young people when they're trying out basketball or trying.
And you had said that comes with possibly 20 employees that come with that?
Yes.
Okay. And where are they located now?
They're located in Broomall on Sproul Road. They used to have a location in King of Prussia where they owned their own spot, but we're very familiar with them, and we've told them that, over the last years that we're getting closer.
Are you dedicating a portion of the building already to their needs, or as you design it, or if they were to come, would it be a new building?
So it would either be part of that clubhouse building, or it would be a freestanding building on the other side of the parking lot where the range is. Okay. We could show you a plan. So, but that, like I said, they like the idea. They like growing the game through first tee. They like giving back. They like the idea that this is golf, to the masses, not this exclusive, type of thing. And it's where they're at. It's where the USGA's at. It's where the PGA's at.
It sounds like it could be a good fit, but could is not definite, but I get it.
If I had to handicap it, I'd handicap it at better than 50-50.
That's pretty good. I
Yeah.
like it. Thank you very much. Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Jones? Okay. So I want to thank everyone for their testimony. I just, Commissioner, I had one other question for you really quickly. Based on what we're doing here, because I do have some concerns about this deal and the way it's structured. So are there any other parcels that are park and recreation space that could be farmed out, I've used for lack of a better term, that could go to a foundation or a nonprofit entity because Parks and Recreation is unable to maintain them? Is there anything else that's being looked at this time?
Yeah, I would say not just because we're unable to maintain them, right? I have no
Okay.
interest in farming out or giving away, any of our assets because we can't maintain them. That we always find a way to maintain given whatever level of resources we have. However, we have many models and precedents where we work with nonprofit partners who have a mission to a mission that aligns with the cities and ours, and we often find opportunities for them to be in park spaces, to fulfill their mission while also, doing us the great benefit of maintaining and operating that asset, right? We had years ago in 1996, this council created the Fairmont Park Historic Preservation Trust, which has since merged into the Fairmont Park Conservancy. But the trust was created to help to create a master lease, a long-term lease for historic properties in the park. If you look back to that ordinance in 1996, the reason the trust was created again was because so many of these park properties, these historic houses, historic house museums were in desperate need of support. And so the trust was created to actually go out and find partners who could make capital investments in the properties and then have a lease on those properties to help maintain them. So it's definitely a model that we've used for decades and recently as well in some of the partners that I mentioned. But I'd say there always has to be that mission alignment and that public service and providing a public service and amenity alignment.
Okay. Okay. So we can continue to talk about that.
Excuse me, Councilwoman, if I could, another example is the in Vernon Park in your district. So the Black Writers Museum, in Vernon Park is another example of a historic asset that, underutilized, right? Underserved, right?
Yes.
In terms of its potential, and finding a partner to go into that I'm not sure about the rent they pay, but I believe it's quite low. And the idea is that they needed a space, for their work. They do great work.
Yeah.
And so we have other examples like that throughout our system.
Yeah, I guess the difference that I see there is that this is a rent-paying tenant to the city of Philadelphia versus, and who, is in a city asset, not, responsible for the entirety of Vernon Park, but just in this one particular building versus, getting 65 acres. I mean, and then the city putting in another $1.5 million for a building that burned down from the insurance settlement proceeds. So I don't see the connection there. I just think we have to be really careful if we're going to be giving away stuff in the city of Philadelphia. We got plenty, we can't maintain property, so we should, should we start giving them away? I just think that we have to be careful.
It's not our intent.
I know
Yeah,
that
I
that's not your
disagree.
intent.
That would
I
never be
understand
our
what you're
intent.
saying, but again, I just, 265 acres is a lot of real estate, and it feels like a really good deal. I mean, I'm not in the real estate business either. It's been a long time since I dabbled in real estate, but it just seems like it's, it's a great opportunity, And we want to see all of the benefits that come to the community, but also we have to ask the hard questions. Is this the best that the city of Philadelphia could have done for our residents, for our taxpayers, for our citizens? You know, is this the best that we can do? And so, you know, we'll leave that up to the people to decide. I have some concerns. But Councilman, did you have anything else? Okay, he knows that I can I can go in a little bit. So, all right, well, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
testimony. Can we have the clerk call the next panel? The next
Darrell
and
Day.
final panel?
Darrell Day, President, Overbrook Park Town Watch. Mark Reason, President, Overbrook Civic Association. And Jessica Tyson, Overbrook Civic Association.
All right. Okay, please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Hi, I'm Jessica Tyson. I'm a resident of Overbrook Park. My home borders the golf course, 1300 block of Farrington Road. I've been there for over 23 years now, and for the first 3 years, I would say, they would maintain that area behind my house. For the past, I'll say about 20 years, they've stopped altogether. And now the weeds, excuse me, the weeds and the vegetation, everything is taking over our backyards. So I was just wondering if they do get the lease, if they could somehow put a guarantee in there that they're going to, again, start to maintain that area so it's not overgrown and going into our backyards, and we have to keep paying to, you know, have it cut down and stuff.
Can we have someone come forward from the foundation, or Bob, or?
Yes, madam. So when we walk the property, literally spend a number of hours looking at these invasive species, and really between dumping and the overgrown vegetation, we've committed, and it's in our lease, that we would address all that overgrown rubbish, I guess, for lack of a better word. And in addition to secure the property, which is also occurring near your home, so that the vandalism, the trespassing that's happening overnight, what we're finding is in some cases not even from that neighborhood, just people transient coming through the neighborhood, that we would firm up that area and keep it clean.
So that specific area, 1300 block of Farrington?
Yes.
Because I was told since it's not in the play of golf, that they're not responsible for doing anything there, but it will be maintained?
Yeah, so again, part of our lease, if you review the lease, that area, there's another along the 9th hole as well, same thing. And, you know, just over time, it's overgrown, and it's become decrepit. It's not sustainable. I will mention, though, along 75th and Lansdowne in front of Rose Playground, you might have noticed that in partnering with the city, both Mr. Allen and Ms. Lavelle, we already have begun work, and we removed quite a bit of dumping and invasive species. It's all gone, and now we're going to seed and really beautify that part of 75th and Lansdowne across from Rose Park. I was at the cleanup day on Saturday, as you know, and when we're cleaning up Rose Park on the other side, we noticed there weren't any trash cans. So some of these things I think are easy fixes. We can put trash cans there. We could begin a regular, you know, pickup cycle for in front of the playground. But with regards to the property that the foundation would be charged with overseeing, you know, we are committed 100% to making it look great, not just for our neighborhood, but also because that's, you know, what we would be maintaining as well.
Okay.
I just wanted to add some more information about the lease. So as a result of touring the perimeters of the golf course, you know, like Catherine, I was very surprised by the poor condition of those areas. And I took our GIS crew out to the site, and we mapped all of the perimeters of the golf course and created maps that not only have the addresses on them of the residential properties adjoining the golf course, but we noted within the map database all of the issues in each of the areas. And then that is built into the lease, so block by block, and the lease mentions specific blocks in the community. The foundation is required to required initially to clean all of that up, and some of it is going to be a major job, but then to maintain the perimeters in pristine condition.
Okay.
So it is a very important issue in the lease.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Does that satisfy your question? Okay, very good. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for your testimony. And if there's no one else here to testimony, we're going to go back into a public meeting. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilman. Okay, this concludes the public hearing on Bill number 170673. We'll now go into a public meeting to consider the action to be taken on this bill. Okay, thanks again. This concludes the public hearing on Bill number 170673. We'll now go into a public meeting to consider the action to be taken on this bill. Chair recognizes Councilmember Jones for a motion on Bill number 170673.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Bill number 170673 be moved, reported from this committee without recommendation, however, with a rule suspension to allow for the first reading of this bill at our next session of council. And in addition, that we will do an amendment to have an annual reporting as to the progress of this lease concession to the city of Philadelphia.
Second.
Before we take the vote, I do want to acknowledge the presence of Councilwoman Parker. It's been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 170673 be reported from this committee without recommendation and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of this motion will signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries, and Bill number 170673 will be reported from this committee with a favorable, will be reported from this committee without recommendation, with a request that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading at the next session of council. And that concludes the business of this committee hearing. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending.
Before we
Oh, I'm
conclude,
sorry.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
a
ma'am.
point of information with the microphones off so I can just approach the chair to just get a summary of why the recommendation was that it be voted from committee without a recommendation. I do just want to state for the public record that I was here when the committee was scheduled to meet at 10 a.m., Councilwoman, because I wanted to make sure I was here to help
yes.
to bring a quorum. But if we can, I would just call just to get some counsel from the chair, if I can.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending.